Where do you go when reality has bowed to your feet? Hello, everyone. That is the title of this episode. And it is very important to really see what happens when you recognize the creator that you are within this moment of creation. Because you are always active in some way, because that is how your self-awareness is maintained. Because when you close your eyes, the activity that is external to you is kept by a different form of internal awareness. So what that means is that if you look at something and then close your eyes, how you are aware of the placement, locality, and the sense of space and time of that object is different. And this is simply the observance of how the human apparatus is limited by its own design. So when you're limited by your own design, you want to see what is greater than the ape. And so this is an area of conception where you must have a faith beyond reality to be able to have a self-awareness beyond your immediate illusion or any immediate limitation. So what that means is that how you're looking at things now must shift for you to see something new. You will see, I have found that the mystic's lifestyle is very profound. It is one where he is comfortable and he is lovingly walking into the unknown. Every moment is a sense of wonder of what it can reveal in regards to knowing and intuitive knowing and understanding. And so the mystic begins to see that by having a sense of unknown, he can experience many great senses of knowing, many bodies of conception on subtler planes of reality and also the immediate plane of reality. So what you realize that the mystic is actually doing is he's a human being paying attention to his mental circuitry and recognizing that he's an existential awareness, not just the idea that he thought he was. And so when you're no longer the idea you thought you were, you see that there's a reason practice is important. Because practice means an engagement with life where your physical individuality is dynamically becoming life, becoming a newer state of awareness to life. And so this is important because there are many dimensions. So in other words, we have the horizontal dimensions, which are a spectrum. So what that means is there's one way you're seeing how good and bad is in the way you're looking now. And instantaneously as you're sitting here, there's a vertical dimension where this presence, this individuality is being observed by greater collective presences. So what that means is that there is always a duality in the horizontal dimension, as I am just playfully saying it now. And in the vertical dimension, there are greater states of collective knowing. So what that means is that you're tapping into a way of observing yourself that is really not a way, it is simply a being. So a being means it is there regardless if we can question it or not. It is there. It is existence whose manifestation regardless of how much we doubt it or not. So what that means is that if I look at a tree and someone else's eyes closed, they're going to say, no, that's not real, it's not there. And that's true because their eyes are closed, they're not seeing it. If you're not allowing yourself to see new things, then you will never get a sense that you're having a new experience. Many people are walking through life not paying attention to their simple moments because they're always trying to be that next complex thing. And the next complex thing is, there's stuff more than where the strings of your desire lead. Do you know? Desire is like the puppet suddenly seeing that all his strings are irrelevant because he's kept by a greater hand. So you will recognize that your idea and your physical presence and how you acknowledge that all within the moment is a sense of conception that once it becomes aware of the vertical dimensions, it is omniscience engaging into different ways of being aware of itself. And so you're fluctuating between an infinity as if you've just stepped out of a shower. And so the space is very clean and you kind of feel as if you are not born, but in a sense, born in a new memory, in a new remembrance. And so for us, we use it memory, but in essence, it is your abstract presence. So your abstract presence does not mean, it means that some people, you are acknowledging the phenomena of thought as thought. You are choosing to have that symbology. When you get the knowing of your collective senses of being, you see that you're no longer kept by ideology, because you know how existence's voice is never speaking in words. It is what words are trying to capture, like photographers that are forgetting that they need to be engaged in the moment. Mindfulness is key when you are opening many doors, and you need to make sure how you're opening and closing them, because that is simply how you're becoming aware of things. In other words, it's like someone not being prepared for something and thinking that they're prepared and suddenly realizing, whoa. But if you are prepared for something and you enter that situation, you will see that the probability of your success is a lot, because you simply are capable, because you know how to do things. So in other words, ability is knowing. And so that knowing, if it is a certainty beyond form, you become a human being that is not bothered by ideas. You're existentially at peace. And so perhaps simple words can show you how you are putting the value in any shape or symbol. You are extracting meaning from my words, because that is how your life has been shaped. And so because human beings are individual lives that they have been shaped, they're in essence individual beings, because we have opened to the realm of communication. So you need to have immense appreciation and tolerance and allowance for your fellow man, because each man is evolving. We're still an evolving species. What that means is that stop judging, stop having guilt. Just recognize your movement, and in other words, walk properly with existence. And that sense of walking properly with existence means you really see what you like to do and be sincere and honest with yourself and go do it. And so you will see that in your inspired actions, you're in a sense touching peaks of a newfound spiritual experience. So what that means is that you will see that there's one method of, let's say, in quotations, enlightenment, which they say just to sitting down and being meditation or whatnot, and like, for example, being in complete solitude for a couple amount of years. And there is a good reason for that, and that is a very wonderful approach and very peaceful and gentle approach. But you see, man is also creating art in this society of his, and so his society is also an artwork that is developing. And so as he's here, you really need to see that people in society and cities like movement, they like engagement into new experiences. I mean, not that I really want to get into this topic, but look at how many people are taking drugs or using certain substances to have a new experience of what they're experiencing now. So what that means is that people are able and very, in a sense, longing for new experience. So what does new experience really mean? And that is what Mr.Within is really here to talk about. Because you will see that the urban man has a great ability to navigate between ideology, because he's confronted by it every day. Everywhere you go, news, marketing. In other words, you think on some level, oh gosh, all this symbology, all these subliminal messages, oh no, this is all bad. But then you realize, once you're able to confront reality, wow, what amount of acknowledgement have you had? In other words, a person who goes through an experience of suffering is a much stronger person, because they have a much more real sense of what that experience is. And so now is the time for each individual that is in a city where he thinks is lost in some way, but in a sense very closely held and found. When you look at it, you will really see that you need to activate yourself. You need to see that the general, the greatest general you saw in every great action movie is really you now. It is now your time. You are your greatest general, and what that means is you must begin allowing yourself to create better senses of you in this reality. How much permission do you give yourself to do things that you've never done? And this is where wonder is important. This is where great works of art are made. And so great works of art does not mean you just have to get a brush and paint like Picasso. Great works of art are great leaps into your own greater experience. You're walking into the realms of novelty. You're trusting your intuition. You're looking at the stars and looking back at yourself. And so there is no light that will be distant when you are light. You emanate a glow that is creating your world. And once you become aware of the spark, you have known yourself in infinite ways. And it is a very beautiful experience of self-acknowledgement. And you really look at how you have been looking at yourself, and when you wonder where you go when all of reality has suddenly been recognized that it is internal, that you are creating it, what do you do then? Well, what do you do when you have wings and you are flying beyond an area you cannot see or cannot be seen? In other words, after you have the form that is the highest peak of your hierarchy based on your existential allowance in regards to your conceptual sense of being or sense of self, you will then see after the sense of self has found the vision to be the greater sense of self and also has confronted the great worst sense of self, then comes the moment where the self-awareness of the being is in a sense not transformed, but to a certain natural alchemy, returned and reunited back to a sense of knowing how it even placed itself into form. So in other words, when you dematerialize, you get an instant awareness of how it occurred. So you have a sense of knowing that began in physicality you don't know. And so many beings go in these subtler planes after their decomposition and wonder how they elevate. And so your elevation is simply to recognize that your reality of form or any shape of consideration or any idea that you think you are is form. And so form is being observed, and so you are your own mirror. And really, when you look at where you're originating from, it is all to a moment within yourself of existential allowance where you simply become the candle that let itself be lit. And so you're never belittled. And so, my friends, I would like to share a quote with you, because you will see that when you have come to a moment of collective acknowledgement of all existence, in other words, the present, in its most transparent freedom and view, you will see that there's more to your eyes than you could ever know. And so I would like to share a poem by a very profound ancient mystic named Attar. And in this poem, he communicates a sense of beautiful entrance into where one goes when all reality has bowed to their feet. In other words, when you have found that moment of knowing, which is your sense of present conception. And the quote says, "He who would know the secret of both worlds will find the secret of them both is love." at all. My friends, you will see that reality will take you in different ways of acknowledging your sense of duality and your sense of form, shape, and all this stuff. In other words, if you thought people were judging you, trust me, when you go and do your internal experience, your self-judgment manifests into perhaps things which, if you're not observant of, it will create unnecessary emotions within you. But if you're able to navigate above that cloud and fly through as a pilot of consciousness, you will see that there's a much more openness to the sky and much more greater experiences can be discovered and, in a sense, reintroduced. I have found it very interesting to, in a sense, see that reality comes down to how simply you allow. If you are a simple person who can allow simply, you will see that life will happen regardless of how much you think it should happen in this way or that way, and you're comfortable with its movement. Because you see, some people are so bothered about not having control in their immediate environment that they go into very agitated realities where they are trying to be the boss, or they're trying to control something in their life, or they feel like they have to dominate in a certain way. Before agitation arises, you're always a present moment of clarity. And so being aware of this means that there is no need for imbalance when you know your balance. And so know your balance beyond thought, but by the feelings you have of who you are. In other words, sometimes when I go into these subtler planes, and what I mean by that is like when I'm, let's say, go into a mode of concentration, or I'm simply sitting down and I'm observing things and I go very deeply into that concept, I see that there are dimensions to my problem that I had not seen when I look at it again. And that is a profound invitation to get rid of the mask that is covering your truth. Take the sincere route, take the honest route, take the playful and intuitive route, and see that the worst nightmares will, in a sense, fade. Because you have stepped out of imagery that can capture you in a certain way. Because you're very omnipresent knowing. And guys, this is not just a joke. I'm not just trying to say these are coming across as words, but you need to recognize that there's an unspeakable aspect to your experience, which is your greatest love of the unknown, in which your knowing is always growing into. So through who you see yourself as, you will begin to see that the path that you thought was some mystical thing, or you had to go to India, or you had to go to a temple and do a certain tradition, was just to remind you of the internal path. All external roads will eventually lead internally. What that means that after you've seen everything of this physical dimension, you will see that the next thing is simply an internal experience. And so you go within your cellular plane. And so an advanced mind has an ability to allow probabilities of its future, and in a sense, reintroductions of its past, to coagulate in the present moment and to be reintroduced in a new chaotic blueprint of reality. And so, in a sense, not even a blueprint of reality, but a blueprint of the universe. So in other words, we are seeing reality like this. How we navigate through different ways of acknowledging our individuality is by utilizing the present moment as the line that is connecting all the dots. And simply then you are part of a plane that has not just created the reality that you see, but also is the same plane that is flying you beyond clouds of computing. Know yourself, and you will see that life will, in a sense, give you a profound sense of longing intuition, that that you will suddenly wake up, you will suddenly see that, wait a minute, there's some unknown aspects to my life which my intuition is pulling me towards. This sense of longing is telling me, all right, go do this, even though I know that there's no reason I should do that. And so when man has an ability to move beyond his reason, he also advances his reasoning. So when you suddenly go into a chaotic system after you've been in an ordered system and you come back into that ordered system, you have a greater understanding. And that's what we're really seeing of people taking very interesting trips, for example, for shamanic reasons, and going into these, I guess, Amazonian forests to try ayahuasca or experiences where reality shifts because your eyes, in a sense, relocate your observance, relocate your sight. And so when you see that you're double-sighted, you're in a sense not insane, but being that sense of collective knowing and firm, gentle ability to confront both all concepts of insanity and all concepts of sanity. So, for example, some people are not comfortable if, like, for example, a heart surgeon is comfortable, for example, in opening up a patient's body properly and, for example, working into healing the heart. But you will see that some people cannot stand that form of shape. In other words, some people are not comfortable in seeing a body opened up during surgery. And so you will see that because you have a unique tolerance, the sensitivity of reality that you're going into is one that is unique to yourself. So in other words, there may be a concept of love between partners of external form, but all external form is dissolving because it's temporal. So what that means is your awareness to being greater senses of knowing is actually being the originator of the awareness of any reality that can be known. Once you're playful, you shall see that you were never late or you were never in the wrong place and there were never any mistakes. Because the way you look at the game suggests the player you are. And so we don't want to be that player on the pitch who feels he's disconnected to the team, because the whole team requires to realize that it must activate the greatest potential of every individual. So if I was in this reality and let's say I had a crew, I had a team, in other words, ground crew, let's say. And so if ground crew came in, these would be people who I would immediately try to activate. And what that means is to give them and grant them a sense of being in which I allow them to reflect and intuitively see who they are. So what that means is that I become a very honest mirror, and sometimes I do not say something, but it is simply a silent presence of being and, in a sense, acknowledging. So sometimes I notice that many people think that being a guru is having a beard or something like that. And in essence, a guru is a concept that is old. In reality, you are a human being who's acknowledging another human being to such a sense of being that humanity cannot be separated in its compassionate eyes. Krishnamurti has this beautiful quote, and he says, I am compassion with its own intelligence. And what does that mean in a world that is always seeing hate, especially in the news? It means that once you trust the beauty of life, and that includes how things deconstruct, not just in how things are constructed. And so once your mind is open to reverse engineering, you will see that the beauty of life is in how it is infinitely possible, then immediately in an instant, impossible. And so it is a great fluctuation of how you as a self-aware being are paying attention to the forms that are creating the pillars of this plane of existence. And so once reality has bowed down to your feet, where you go is actually beyond that reality. Because when reality has bowed down to your feet, if you think you are a ruler, if you are lost into ideologies of domination, you're not giving yourself the ability. So in other words, if you have guilt, there's aspects of yourself that are saying there's a reason you need to be in this experience right now, because you haven't looked at these parts of yourself. And unless you look at them, you'll still be here. So simply you just gotta pay attention to yourself and, in a sense, love thyself. But to really love yourself means to allow yourself to be present and to exist in infinite ways. What that means is that you may call someone a fool, but if that man knows himself to be not a fool, then you are the one who's fooling yourself. So you will see that insecurity is a response system that is, in a sense, trying to prove something in its own illusion. We want capable beings that are compassionate, because compassion brings clarity. Compassion allows you to trust your space and time. And so when you trust space and time, then you can work with it in the present. In a way, you're acknowledging simultaneous aspects of your own being. So there comes a sense of multidimensionality and simultaneous presence. So do not think of parallel realities, but think of, in a sense, a tree and how it is branched out. And so every branch has its own unique design of how it looks at the world. And similarly, this tree of life, regardless of how you extract meaning out of its symbol, you will see that nature is always showing you the pattern of existence. And so it is your responsibility to not try to find this pattern, to not try to find the philosopher's stone or the alchemist's elixir, but to, in a sense, dissolve into the symbology, and in a moment of existential confrontation, be a knowing that is, in a sense, unspeakable, because it is always the observance of that which is spoken. And so you really begin to appreciate the vastness of nature when you reflect and see the nature of your being. And so when you think reality has bowed down to your feet, you see it is not just reality, it is you. Every sense of other in any dynamic of thought, in any kind of memory, in any kind of image has just become you, because an existential spark has brought forth a new flame of understanding, a new flame of feeling and knowing who you are. Because complexity must not be confronted with other forms of complexity, because you do not try to think of a complex answer to a complex problem. You think of a simple answer to a complex problem, because simplicity simply stands there when complexity shouts, judges, accuses, and in a sense destroys. But at the end, that which stands is the light that enters through the crevice of the walls of ideology. Do not falter in how you are moving in your ideas and in your sense of confronting spirituality and these deep concepts. Depth is simply just your greater observance to yourself. You're just paying more attention to yourself. You're more concentrated on who you think you are and then really what you are. And in that concentration, you will see that things really dissolve the moment you have the intention to do so. So for example, when you're thirsty, you really need to get water. And so you see a powerful moment where a human being is like, my thirst must be, satisfied. And so he goes and gets a cup of water. So very firm knowing of, okay, water, glass, I know where it is. Yes, now go get it now, right? And he doesn't think in this way, he just does it. So similarly, in how we acknowledge our most complex abstract realms of thought and view is through simple knowing and simple awareness of all that is. So mindfulness. So what the Zen master discovered through his simple awareness, through his breathing, was such an existential path to knowing all that is, that the mystic was never lost. For in every dissolution, in every reality, in every $8,000 apocalypses that being has been through, there has been always a new moment to move beyond it. And so you will really be carried into great realms of your own understanding when you really see and tune into where your ideas are coming from, how they're constructed, and what you really know. Look at it. Don't be shy, because you know how sometimes like you know something and you can say it immediately to someone. So what that means is like, you know, so if someone's going the wrong way, you're like, hey buddy, stop. You're going the wrong way, you can go this way. Right? So with that same amount of certainty, you should have that with yourself. So you should immediately see yourself, and if you feel bad or sketchy about something, it's okay to tune down the sensitivity and be gentle for a sec, and in a sense, see what's going on with you. What's going on with you, man? In other words, like, remember yourself. Get to know yourself a bit more. And really see that clarity is how you're acknowledging yourself in the present moment. And if you're attaching it to external shape and form, which is temporal in this world of cyclical infinite change, there is something that might be missed. Maybe you are not being aware to how you're aware, and the minute you become aware of that, you're comfortable in how you are an aspect of existence, a presence of being. For with simple steps, man has always walked through the gates of complexity. And be very playful, because sometimes your experience of how external reality is present creates certain forms to come and confront the form which you are thinking that is you. So what that means is, on some level, you're seeking a greater experience of excitement, because that is the spirit of transcendence. However, at the same time, you don't want to step out of your comfort zone. And so man is in this existential dilemma of wondering who he really is, when he's not really going into the state of awareness that really shows who he really is. So we need to really get people moving in that sense. And so you are the immediate source of how your reality is being received. You are the awareness of it. You are an awareness here. Feel free. You are self-awareness. Your awareness. You are the observance of all objects of presence. And even though this physical body is immediately here, there are many subtler bodies which you are, in a sense, on some level associating, because you're keeping certain conceptions of space and time really deeply rooted outside of individual grasp. So it's not something to talk about. But in a sense, don't think that it's something important either. It's just I'm pretty much saying, like, that's how the soil is, okay? That's how I think the soil is. So, very gracefully, my friends, I hope that this talk has served you. Really intuitively extract meaning. So what that means is, from this talk, really feel like, okay, you know, sometimes learn from also the feeling of how you hear something as well. Because feelings are great teachers, and they hold many treasures of how thought can burst into very abstract design. And so when reality has bowed down to your feet, you shall see there is nowhere to go but beyond. Much blessings and namaste.